Hello and welcome back to the Nourished Home channel. Thank you for being here. I know I seemingly went MIA for a few weeks, but things have just been wildly crazy and chaotic. Nothing is wrong. We've just had a very full, packed fall schedule. We've had a couple of weddings, which has been amazing. We have our own wedding coming up in just a few weeks. So, needless to say, balancing the home and working still and planning a wedding and being in weddings and family events and functions. Life goes on even when big things are happening in your own personal life. There are still other commitments that we have. The world around us keeps spinning. Today is going to be a little bit of a different topic. When I filmed this, I was thinking, this will be all about how you have to get back on track with homemaking after a long weekend or, a busy time where you had to neglect the kitchen and the home for a few days. But then I remembered that during this time, I was actually on my cycle, and every month, homemaking during that time, and I don't have children of my own yet. My fiance has 2 children that are with us for part of the week each week, but it is exhausting, and I wanted to come on here and really talk about that today, because for those of us who do not use hormonal birth control, are not pregnant or freshly postpartum, and work with the natural rhythms of our cycles, it's, to me, would be remiss to not talk about how, as homemakers, and even if you're not a homemaker, how to live more intentionally and aligned with each phase of the cycle, and especially how to balance things right before your cycle comes, during, and even a few days after, when you're still recuperating that energy. So if you're new here, you may not know that besides cooking and homemaking and ancestral practices and health and fitness, besides all of that, I feel that my main mission in life is centered around women's health. And I'm not talking about the conventional modern medicine for women's health, like obstetrical care and gynecological care. That's not my focus. Mine is more of a completely holistic, radical education, radical responsibility, living in tune with nature and how our bodies align with nature and how we can better align our lifestyles to align with our cycles. The reason I got started in this space was I've honestly always been very interested in birth. Even as a child, I was always watching on TLC. There was like a show called something about like a baby. I forgot the name of it, but essentially it was like a 30-minute episode, and you'd follow 1 or 2 women having their babies. And most of these babies were born in the hospital. And I remember one episode, a woman gave birth at home in her bathtub. And from then on, I was like, yeah, that really just makes a lot of sense. So just a quick break from the womb talk. What I had going on in the kitchen this was, I think, like a Tuesday after we had a super long weekend. So I just got some chickens in the oven. I chopped up our omelet topping, so it's usually a bell pepper and a shallot. I had some bread that was going stale, so I popped it in the oven to get some breadcrumbs done. It was a reset prep day, and you'll see in the next clip here, I kind of walk you through a little bit more of what was going on that actual day. But like I said, I typically like to do this on a Sunday and this happened on a Tuesday, and I remember just feeling so behind and overwhelmed, and I had to remind myself that that's just fabricated, and I needed to relax and just go slow and get done what I could get done. So I need to feed my starter. Let's see if you all can see it. It has that grayish liquid on top. Don't panic about that. It's called hooch. Some people pour it out. It's kind of incorporated. I am just going to mix it in. But I am down to my very last bit of my einkorn flour. I haven't restocked because I have a suspicion that a grain mill is on the horizon much sooner than I thought it would be. So yeah, we're gonna work with this. I do need to what happened? I do need to conserve a couple tablespoons because I love to make gravy from all the juices from the chicken that I'm currently baking. So I'm gonna pull some out to conserve because that would be a travesty if I didn't have it. So let me just grab that real quick. I feel like that should be enough. Alright, go get some water. Let's see. Tomorrow night is breakfast night, so I'm really hoping I have enough to make my sourdough Dutch baby. We will see. Alright, let's see. Alright, a little thinner than I'd like, but why is it so dark? There we go. Yeah, it's gonna have to do, right? That's all I got. That's all I got. Let that hang out. So as I was saying, I, had a propensity for birth and women's health at a very young age. It kind of carried with me. I did end up going on birth control in my early adult life because I thought that was the answer to really heavy and crampy cycles. I'll have to get into this whole story another time because I do really want to focus on homemaking through the different phases of a woman's cycle. But in super short, I was medically injured by a gynecologist at the age of 19. It turned out to be completely medically unnecessary, this procedure that he did to me, and it could potentially have lifelong impacts. Again, I'll go into that in another video, but just to give some context as to why this homemaking page is talking to you about how to homemake in a healthy way to honor your cycle, to honor where you're at in each phase. And hopefully, if you are someone who does track your cycle or who is interested in leaning into that, hopefully this will help you out a little bit just to orient you to the 4 different, completely different hormonal and somewhat spiritual elements that come with the 4 phases of the cycle. So the first phase is the menstrual cycle, and that's what we're going to really focus on today after I briefly go through these 4. Obviously, this is when our bleed begins. Estrogen and progesterone are depleted at this point because we are not pregnant. And so the reason that we bleed is progesterone drops right before we bleed if there is no fertilized implanted embryo into our womb. And progesterone is really the hormone that one makes us feel good. It's called the feel good hormone. It's called the pregnancy hormone. That is what is holding the uterine lining in place to safely secure a pregnancy. If we are not pregnant, or sometimes miscarriages can be caused by low progesterone. But anyways, those hormones are lower. Energy levels are definitely lower. A lot of us might even have those PMS symptoms leading up to it. But essentially, it's really a time for rest. Now, biologically speaking and physiologically speaking, it's not the time for super, high physical activity. It's not to say you have to be bedridden and all that, but it's probably not the time you want to engage in your most vigorous workout routine or commit to a super busy schedule. And I know that we can't always control that. Again, this is just something to consider, right? Control the controllables. We're strong, we can push through things. And if you are, of the faith, even the Bible has it, written in there that during this time, a woman should be resting and, not even having to be worried about the meals or caretaking or homemaking. So these are all this to say it's a very ancient way of living, and that's what I mean when I say living in tune and in alignment with our cycles. So during this time we go through a natural iron detoxification process. It's really important to stay nourished, hydrated, well rested, all of the above. But when it comes to homemaking, the show must go on, right? Not all of us have either, familial help or hired help, and that's perfectly fine, of course, right? But in a few minutes, I will share some tips on how to better manage this time, because what I find is that I move slower and things get backed up, and then I get stressed, and then I get anxious, and then that adds to irritability and fatigue and burnout. And if I can better prepare myself in terms of the homemaking duties for this time of the month, things will go a lot smoother. The next phase of the cycle is called the follicular phase, often referred to as the rebirth. This is kind of when, like, the cloud of, needing that rest and just not having all the mental clarity and energy that you have at other times of the month really starts to lift, and the sun kind of comes out again. Estrogen levels are slowly rising, energy levels are rising, mental clarity is coming back, and you no longer feel that you need as much rest. Like, wow, I really can, get up this morning. And so that's one of my favorite times of the month, obviously, when that cloud is lifting and I'm like, okay, so I'm not just a lazy load of crap who can't do anything. Even though that's not true, our brain tricks us sometimes, when we need rest and we can't adequately get that rest. The third phase is the ovulatory phase. Now, this is going to be where our hormones peak. So estrogen is pretty high and progesterone is starting to enter in. Estrogen dominates the first half of the cycle and progesterone dominates the second half. This is where, again, energy is going to be higher, libido might be higher, and we have more capacity for that social connection. We're not as closed in and as sheltered as we feel during the menstrual phase and even the premenstrual phase, which we'll get to in a minute. So we are like out and about. We have not only the physical energy, we have the mental energy. Mental clarity is is great. We are creative. This is when we really can get things done. So the follicular phase, the ovulatory phase, really take advantage here. If you have big projects that you need to get done in the home, I'm not talking about like the day-to-day ones, but if there's any prep work or any tasks that require, a lot of mental energy or even physical energy and creativity, try to get that done during these couple weeks, because one, you're going to have the urge to do it. We're in a super get things done mode during this time. So not only will you have the energy, but you will also have the mental drive to do it as well. Lastly, the fourth cycle is the luteal phase. This is where we're really starting to prepare for either pregnancy or to release our uterine lining, in the next week or so. Progesterone is super high here. So this is again that feel-good hormone. Even though the progesterone makes us feel really good, if pregnancy does not occur, that's when the progesterone levels will drop. Accordingly, estrogen as well. And if our bleed comes, the cycle repeats. Back to rest, back to nourishment, and getting that reset. A couple of things to keep in mind for homemaking through the phases of the cycle, and especially the menstrual cycle. Get as much prepared before as you can. Maybe this week is not super hands-on recipes. Maybe your deep clean happened a week or two before, and now it's just picking up and maintaining the home. Baking, roasted chickens, things that you can just kind of set in the oven and forget. That's going to be your friend during this time. Again, having to be super hands-on, super, physically having to move around the home a ton, managing a billion different tasks, that's not going to be your friend during this time. So I would highly recommend thinking of meals that can be maybe prepared on one day and that will last for 2 or 3 days. And that's going to take off also the mental load of thinking about, okay, what do I prepare today? How long do I need to be on my feet? How long do I need to be, managing certain tasks? If you can remove that from your plate, homemaking through the cycle does not have to look like, okay, we just have to either go out to eat somewhere or order in or leave everyone to their own devices. You can still be in control, but it takes a lot of, honestly, accountability to get things done ahead of time that can get done. So honor your rest during this time. Honor the fact that you're not gonna have the same mental and physical energy. Don't get frustrated about it. There's a reason that we need the cycle of rest and reset and all of that. Again, don't be afraid to honor it. Think about ways that you can maybe cut back on how much of your time and demand is on you. Again, it's 7 to 10 days. I know that's a big chunk of a month, but again, with proper planning, we can really relieve ourselves of the unnecessary stress. As always, thank you for being here. I hope you'll remember to nourish your body, honor your roots, and thrive naturally.